Okay. All right. So I think the next one is just a casual sharing session. I think this one we take a research on, I think the #1 green city in the world by, I think most people who in the renewable energy should able to know there is every year there's a list of cities that are actually very green and sustainable. So I think on top of that, a small note, I actually visited on a study tour in 2019 of how Vienna, to be specific, achieved their #1 green city and sustainable city in the world. So I think it's just a slide before we prepared for the main agenda, our main speaker. So I hope everybody enjoy some of the knowledge that we are going to share after this. So next. So we call it investing in what? I think very much what Mr. Steve have mentioned just now. So we do not want to take it too much on the technical aspect. We thought, putting it in the feasibility mode, so we'll make everybody understand, the need of renewable energy for future. So next. Next, please. Next. Okay, I think this one pretty much have been presented by Mr. Steve. I'm not going to go through much on the SIDA mission and MISI and VC. I think maybe we go straight to slide number 19. Bear with us for a while. Slide number 19. These are pretty much explained by our first speaker, Mr. Steve. Slide number 19. Okay, all right. So basically, we wanted to just share a view of how actually other cities are actually, or other places have actually achieved their mission to be green and to achieve their sustainability program. So Vienna is the case study that we are going to share today. Next. Okay, we break this into three main points. Main point number one, I think, as usual, the vision. When we share with during my study tour, I think the first actually is always a vision, the desire by the state authority or the government. I think SIDA have done a good job on this. So we will share how this city actually draft their vision for renewable energy program. Next. Next figure. Slide a bit slow today. Okay, Vienna is actually a small city, a population of 1.72 million out of 8 million Austria population as a whole. They have consistently achieved #1 in the greenest city in the world. Next. Okay. They actually have they have become a green energy center for Europe. By 2050, just like our own back home, they strive to be 50% energy consumption from renewable sources. So I think the entire city actually run on free electricity, actually, especially the public transportation. Next. Okay. All right. So they actually have a program that very comprehensive for climate protection. These are actually embedded into their government like our act to achieve sustainability. Next. Scroll down quickly. So these are also aside from the photovoltaic, this is the study tour that I went to. Basically, this is a few of renewable energy. They are combined. This center is actually in the middle of the city. They derive renewable energy from a hydro plant, from PV, and then they turn it into a public park. They turn it into a water sport center. So they are all inclusive. The architects who designed this place is called Ferdinand Hydro Plant. It's actually an all-inclusive renewable energy center. They also have an industry port behind. So I think they are very interesting because this center is actually placed in the middle of a CBD. So which is rarely happen in a city in Malaysia. So next. So point number 2, after the vision, they actually make it a law. I mean a bylaw into their city, like our bidding plan and our KM requirement, so that every architect or every other designer who submitted plan or submitted development for any of the project, they have to comply with the energy requirement as part of their approval for their development. So next. Next. Okay, the law, actually the bidding regulation is similar to our UBBL, except we do not have an energy regulation. So they put the energy solar panel regulation, renewable energy regulation into the bylaw. Then I think starting from last year, they have make it compulsory for residential. Previously, before that, it's only buildings. Now they make it a compulsory for residential to participate. To actually comply. So basically, they do have a calculation. I think maybe Steve know about this. They have like a requirement of certain kilowatt that I think previously mentioned by Steve per house. They calculated against, like we calculated for our green building index, volume of the building, area of the building, and the net requirement for solar panel to be put on the building. So I think it's quite interesting. There is an attachment of the research at the end of this slide. So I think for the detail, whoever interested, they can actually seek PAMSo reference. So we will provide the slide for those who wanted to study further. So they do have a very specific in term of like 1 kilowatt for the length of building for each 300 meter of conditioned gross floor area. So all these are actually very specific in their UBBL. Next. So they now actually have expanded it into a residential requirement. So the one that I mentioned just now is actually for residential. Next. So similarly, like what our speaker were explained today, solar panel on the roof. Next, this is in the bidding plan submission, bidding for approval. Next. Then they also have a KM with kebenaran merancang requirement. I mean for zoning. So we are used to our planning zoning. You know, they are now putting, they call it an energy zoning. So certain area actually require certain kilowatt requirement for renewable energy. So when plans submitted for approval, so they have to take into consideration what is the energy zoning requirement for certain areas. So that's an example of it. You know, I mean, zone 002 and zone 01 have a different energy requirement. So the voltage required are different. So designers, architects, PSP, SP, they have to design accordingly to meet the we call it KM requirement before the approval. Next. So for next. This is another interesting program that they have. So it's actually, they put it, the solar panel, the energy renewable requirement, the wattage, the investing in wattage requirement, they put it as a public ownership. That means they call it like a leaseback concept where because of the building plan and KM requirement, there's a required kilowatt per house. So that actually, they can actually lease back that requirement to the state-owned company that will run the renewable energy requirement, and then they lease it back to them to manage and to operate. Then I think at the end of the day, the company who run it, whatever profit, whatever generate from the solar farm or from the other resources, they will give it back to the citizen, to the rakyat, in terms of bonuses. Then I think they also convert it into a food stamp. I mean, the resident could actually, you know, use the food coupon to buy food, to buy your groceries at any of their stores. So these are actually a very innovative way of they call it public ownership. So I think these are actually not a private company owned solar farm. These are actually a public. So because of for example, if they live in flats or apartment, they do not have enough roof, but then yet they have to comply with the building plan requirement or KM requirement. So those are actually like a contra. You can actually contra it to the solar farm. So then you own each of the solar panel, you know, I mean, as a stakeholder. So I think in our Islamic concept, we call it wakaf lah. Like when we donate a square foot of land to build mosque or to build surau. So basically, in a similar concept, but this one is more like a business entity where they run. There is a profit, then they share it. They share it. You can read the detail of it. So it's actually, they call it a public ownership solar panel or renewable energy program. So it's actually very what they call citizen of the cities benefited from the renewable energy program. Next. Next. So that is the conclusion. So I think for a successful renewable energy, it takes 3 points that I think we should learn from how they did it: vision, regulation, and actually inclusivity with the rakyat. I mean, to make it very successful. In the case of Vienna, I think they actually about 10,000 residents participated in the first hour of this program. So I think it's quite successful. I do not know whether it's successful here in Malaysia, but I think this is something to ponder. That means any disruptive ideas, I think it requires all stakeholder participation. Even we talk about 1.7 million population, it is successful. So I think maybe, hopefully, in Malaysia, we were able to draw the knowledge and the experience done by other places. So I think with that, I end PAMSo comment and ideas on for our next speaker. Thank you, Cik Naim.